Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar today. Today we'll be discussing the firm template guide. A lot of you would be in a position, because it's the beginning of the year, that we all will be starting to create your firm template guide. We want to show you how easy and the step-by-step process that we've created for you to create your firm template guide. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. I think if anybody is still using the old firm template Word document, please don't anymore. The old Word firm template document looked like what I've got on screen at the moment. This has been completely deprecated and replaced by the firm template guide. Your actual starting point needs to be our success community. So what I'd like all of you all to do when you're starting your journey on creating your firm template is to navigate to our success community and type in firm template overview. Once we get there, this is the starting point that everybody needs to start from. And from here is where you'll get step-by-step instructions, and we'll hold your hand every step of the way to make sure that you create a firm template successfully. So what I want to start by doing is just telling you how the process has changed. So we had a lot of feedback to the old firm template Word document that it was very difficult to follow, and a lot of people weren't getting the right results. So when we looked at it, we broke down the process into the following 7 steps that you see at the bottom of this diagram. So this diagram explains how the process is broken down. So we envisage if you're creating a firm template, the first thing that you do is you'd have to do some planning. We take you through a few key features, key questions that we need you to answer, and we help you answering those questions as part of the planning stage. Then we broke it down into, once you've planned and know the outcome that you're trying to achieve, we show you where to get your software and how to start. So that means whether you're starting from old file or you're updating your existing file or you're creating a new file, we basically show you how to, if you're using either of those starting points, what are the exact steps that you need to follow. Once you've got your starting point, we then start taking you through the different changes that we make it easy for you to understand the different changes that have happened in the file from last year to this year. And then we let you start customizing your firm template, where you'll put in your own logos, maybe customize a few notes, and we show you and put it in a logical sequence that's easy to follow. And that's our 4th step in the process. Once you've made all your customizations, we definitely feel that, and this was really lacking in our old Word process, is that we're giving you a way of testing your financials, your firm templates. We've done some automated tests in that regard, but this is a very key step that you'll need to, or everybody needs to follow. I think the benefit here of spending a little bit more time testing the firm template, the most commonly used features within the template before you roll it out, means that you pick up things that before they've actually gone out to the rest of the class. Because once a template goes out, it could have a knock-on effect, a 10-fold knock-on effect or a 20-fold knock-on effect. And you want to catch the bugs, if any, as early in the process. So we've created automated tests to help you do that, and we've specified the things that you should check manually. So this is a key difference to the old process. Then once you've tested your firm template, you'll make your probe changes if needed, and then we're going to take you through a journey on how to package your firm template. So each of these 7 steps are broken down into further subcategories, which I'm going to go through with you now. And we think it's the most logical order to follow and the right grouping level. And if you follow these in this order, you'll definitely get to the right results. The only other takeaway that I want you to get from this diagram is from the headers on the top here. So like I mentioned now, the starting point is the success community. This is the page that you start from, where you'll do your you'll do your planning work, where you'll decide if you need a firm template or not. You'll answer the questions to determine yes or no. And once you've decided that you do, if you decided that you do need a firm template, we'll also guide you through how to create your starting point, whether you're creating a new firm template or updating an old firm template from the success community. Once you've got your new file, that's when the firm template guide really comes into play, where you'll follow steps 3 to 6 in the firm template guide, which will obviously be in your firm template based off this file that you've created in step 2. And then once the firm template guide helps you make all the changes, the last step will be to package, and then we direct you from the firm template guide back to the community to show you the steps on packaging. We couldn't actually put the steps on packaging in the firm template guide, the reason being that you probably, or you need to delete the firm template guide before you send it out to all your clerks, because there's certain features that it enables which are specifically for firm champions. It gives you the ability to easily change the design mode password, which you might not want everybody to have, and it'll give you the ability to, for example, turn on all the content in one go and make changes across your financial statements, which you might not necessarily want to give to everybody. So that's why we had to bring you back to the community in order to package the firm template. So without any further ado, I'm just going to switch my video off for a second, or for the rest of the presentation. The important thing to note from this departure point is this diagram. So you're going to get to a point one of the days and you're going to want to create your firm template. So you're going to come to this place and you're going to understand what this diagram means. And what I said is that we've got a step-by-step process that you need to follow. So over here is the first step that you need to follow. And if you click on it, it's called planning. So on the community, what we've done is we've given you a couple of questions that we need you to answer, and we've given you the information to help you come to the right answer. So the first thing that you probably need to understand is if you need a firm template or not. So we obviously advocate for everybody to create a firm template. We feel that there's many benefits from standardizing the content across your firm, time saving, better client experience and training and onboarding journey for your new clerks. It has a plethora of benefits. Anybody that feels that they shouldn't be creating a firm template, please just double check that decision against the benefits that it can create. So we're going to assume for the rest of this webinar that you made the decision that you are creating a firm template. Once you've decided that, you need to understand how many firm templates you are actually going to create. So our recommended procedure is for you to create one firm template per reporting framework. So we've got IFRS financial reporting framework typically for the people on this webinar, and we've got IFRS for SME template, and we advise that you only have these two templates. Obviously, they could have follow the process within SME Afrikaans as well, but that could potentially be your third template. But we don't advise you to have a SME template for SME firm template for company, and then a separate SME firm template for closed corporations, etc. The only consideration that should make you depart from having a firm template per reporting standard is if within your firm template you might be in a scenario where you've got multiple branches, and each branch, for example, needs a different audit report letterhead. In that scenario, you probably need to create a firm template per reporting framework per branch, but very unlikely scenario. If you can, it's important to have a conversation with the partners to maybe consider creating a more generic letterhead so that you can create one firm template. The benefit of having one firm template is that it reduces the amount of time spent creating a firm template and testing and rolling out. It really will help you create efficiencies the fewer firm templates you get, and we advocate for you having one firm template per reporting framework. So once you've made a decision on how many firm templates you need, the next important thing decisions you need to start making from a planning perspective is what is going to be your starting point for this new firm template. So whenever you're starting or creating a new firm template, you've got two options. Your first option is to take our stock standard Caseware Africa template and create a new file based off it and start customizing and making your changes within it. The second option that you have available to you is to update an existing firm template. So you could have a firm template from last year, you're very happy with that firm template, and you have the ability to just run the update on it and use that as your starting point. But with both the options, there's pros and cons to each. So if we look at the journey of if you make a decision to create a new firm template, we always advocate for you to create a firm template or go this route once every 2 years at least. The reason being is that sometimes some content is we are unable to put all content or changes within an update. And I'll give you an example. It happens very rarely, but if you look at cooperatives, the cooperatives affected a large set of the financials, and if we had to update it within or maybe part of the update process, we would have had to update basically the entire financial statements. So that feature or that entity type is only made available through a file new. So it's important that you, at least every 2 years, redo your firm template by creating a new firm template from scratch, as opposed to updating. So that's the first thing to note when you're making this decision. When we go through the pros and cons, I think from creating a new firm template point of view, you're guaranteed to get all the latest disclosure changes, all our latest bug fixes will be in your file. If you had introduced any of your own bugs while customizing your firm template from last year, those bugs won't be carried over because it's a brand new file. And we've been through both the processes multiple times, and the create new firm template process is much faster, and you'll see why as we go further down the demo. The only problem here is that you will have to redo any customizations that were in your old firm template. So that's what we're seeing as a con in this scenario. With regards to the second way that you could create your starting point in terms of updating an existing firm template, the first thing is that you won't have to redo any customizations for sections that we didn't update. So had you updated or customized the PPE note, for example, and then we came and updated the PPE note, you'd probably lose those customizations. But for sections that we didn't update, you will definitely retain those customizations. So you'll have less rework to do in terms of customizations. You'll get a lot of the bug fixes and latest content disclosure changes on sections that were not protected or restricted. So in an existing file you have, or in your existing firm template, once you've customized, you might have restricted the update from running on that section. We will respect that lock on that section, and we won't update it so that you don't have to customize. But then you'll have to go through a process of assessing whether you want or how your existing customization should change based off the latest disclosure requirements. So there's a little bit of extra work involved in that step. I think recustomizing sections that were updated is a con. It always takes up a lot of time. You will have to review the updated file on a section by section basis, and that is where a lot of the time is taken when you choose the update an existing file option. So I think I want you all to just take note that we've listed all the pros and cons in our help documentation. It should be enough information to help you make the right decision. There's no right or wrong process. Both the processes work. I think it's a very individual or firm decision based on where how the amount of customization you have in your firm template that should ultimately drive what your starting point is. So once you know what your starting point is going to be, we're going to show you, you're going to jump to the next step, which is how to prepare your starting point. But before we get to that, I do want to make you aware of the additional information we put at the bottom of this page. It specifically gives you an overview of how we work at Caseware Africa, and it goes through various things. And I want to just take a moment to explain some of that to you. Some of you all are experienced firm champions who know this already, and some are doing the firm templates for the first time. So it's important that everybody gets the right overview of how we see the world. So we will release to you in one of two ways. We'll do a full template like we did in November, or we'll do a hotfix. You can navigate to the success community and you can find our latest releases via the link here. So if you're not sure, you are guided to the right place for when you're looking to get to the download the full template. The hotfixes are also at the bottom of the same page. So if we do release a hotfix, you'll see it at the bottom of the page and it's linked from the software. But those are the two ways that we deploy changes to you. When we deploy one of those changes, we'll try to communicate this to you by sending you an email or sending you a message within the software using the notification manager. So it's vitally important that you as firm champions follow the steps here to ensure that you are getting the right emails from us. So here's a help article which tells you how to register yourself, should you not be receiving the emails, or if to just double check that you are registered correctly. So the emails is very important that you'll get yourself registered for, and the notification manager is actually within the software. A lot of you might have already seen it if you're in the software on a day-to-day basis, but essentially this screen pops up whenever there's a new hotfix or release from us, and it'll only pop up if you're on an older version to what we've released. So if you're on the latest version, the screen will not appear, but if you don't have the latest version installed, this screen will appear. You will have the ability, it'll show up on everybody's PC. And so in a smart sync environment, if 3 people are using the same Caseware file, 3 people will get the notification and 3 people will be able to interact with it differently. I could say, I don't want to see this message ever again. And somebody else, the next person would say that just close, and they'd keep on getting the message popping up every time they opened up that file, but I would never see it again until Caseware or we at Caseware release again. So at a high level, I wanted to just make sure that you're aware of how we're going to communicate to you and how we're going to release to you, because it's very important as firm champions that you'll understand that. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to give you the information as and when you need it. So if you follow the process within this firm template overview page, you definitely get the right information whenever you need it. So back to where we were. you are at a point where you've answered these questions. You might have to have discussions with your partners and then maybe change the way the way that you historically did things within the firm. If you need to, now's the time to make those decisions and speak to the right people to get the right approvals. But once you've answered these two main questions, you're going to move on to preparing your starting point. And like I said, we're trying as much as possible to give you the exact steps that you need to follow when you need to do it. So I'm going to assume for this part of the demonstration that we're creating a new firm template based off the latest Caseware template, and we're not updating an existing file. So you're going to click on the option that makes the best sense to you, and here's our first step of instructions that you need to start following. So we're going to tell you to uninstall all templates. Some people might know how to do it, but for those that don't, it's simply a matter of clicking on it, and we've given you the instructions on exactly how to uninstall all your templates. Once you've uninstalled your templates, the next part of the process is to delete any extra remnants of the old template that might still be remaining on your PC. And like everything, and like the way we've developed it, we're trying to give you the right information at the right point in time so that you feel supported and know exactly what to do when at the right time. We give you the instructions on how to delete the extra components that might be left over on your PC. Then when it comes to the next step in that process would be installing the latest template. The same logic applies, that we're giving you a video on how to install, should you not already know. Then we're gonna also take it to a level of suggesting a naming convention for your file. I think this is another one that I want to go through. It doesn't have to be followed, but I think often what happens if you don't employ a naming convention when you roll out a firm template, people sometimes aren't sure if they are on the right firm template, especially if you don't put in some sort of your own firm version within the name. So if you've got a version number within the name, it makes it very easy to see should you have to roll out a second or a third time. And it's not necessarily that you're going to roll out to all your clerks. You might just be doing a version 1 for testing, a version 2 for testing, a version 3 for testing, and then roll out version 3 for the whole year to your firm. So it's just more of an internal control, just to make sure that everybody is on the right version and working on the same thing. So what we suggest is that you include your practice name, the year that you're creating the firm template for, and version 1.1. Every time there's a release from us, so this is obviously our first release, so that'll stay version 1, and then within there, after the dot, you can make 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and you might only decide to roll out to your firm 1.5. But it gives you that control that you're always making changes and to the right version. Should we release a second time in a year, which we definitely trying to avoid as much as possible because we want to cause the least amount of disruption to you guys, we then suggest that you up this version, the major version number, to a 2, and then you go back to 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, your firm version. So I thought I'd just take a moment to explain why we went into detail on our suggested firm template naming convention and the benefits that it has from an internal controls perspective. Once you've created your file, we're back at the point now where we're giving you detailed steps on how to prepare your starting point. And you've basically created a new file, you've given it the right name, and you've got a file on your PC. This is the part in the process where we move from the success community to start following steps on the success community to start following steps within the firm template guide itself. So all you have to do is only firm champions can access the firm template guide. It's behind, you have to be logged into the community to be able to see the download. So just to make sure that only the right people in the organization get the firm template guide. You can click the button here to follow the instructions on exactly what what to do once you've downloaded it. But I've got a file. So we're going to assume at this point that I've downloaded it. And once it's downloaded, all you have to do is unzip it and add it to the document manager of your file. So I'm going to open up the firm template guide now, and it'll look like this when you see it for the first time. So the first thing that I want you to note is that we are basically just, this document is broken up into multiple tabs. So you've got the prepare your starting point, the understanding must change, the set, the customizing. So these are exactly the same steps that we showed you in the diagram on the firm template overview success community page. Nothing has changed from that perspective. The only thing that's changed from what we did from when we started this webinar to now is that instead of following the steps and being guided by the community, now that we've got this firm template case view document in our set of financials or in our firm template, we start to follow the steps here. And the first thing it's going to do is going to ask you, have you completed all the planning steps? So we went through that on the community. Had you not had you missed it or accidentally come and downloaded your firm template guide, you can click on this link and you'll be redirected to the success community to help you do your planning. The most important thing to understand with the firm template guide is whether what drives it is this drop down here. We've used case view because it lets us, where it's different from a Word document, is that it lets us skip and hide content or the content that's not applicable to you. So just like how we do in the financial statements, where you've got CC content, for example, that's hidden when you're a company entity type. We're gonna only show you the steps that are applicable to you based off the starting point that you've chosen. So you might have decided to create a brand new firm template. In that case, you'd see a certain amount of steps. Even on this next page, just take note that there is no, it's a very short page, for example, if you're creating a new firm template. But if I had to select update an existing firm template, the steps in the bottom here has changed, and even the steps on the subsequent tabs change. So it's very important to make the right selection based off of what your actual starting point was, so that you get to the right outcome. So with the understanding what's changed, previously when we said create a new file, we had that selected, this was a very short list. There was only one step in it. But if you updated an existing file, your understanding what's changed is it has a lot more steps because it's a much more involved process. So it's very important to make the right selection here. I'm going to leave it on update the existing firm template. And at this point, it starts becoming a checklist. So it starts having a particular, it's asking you things like, have you seen our success community page? Is this the process that you followed? So the process that we've got on the success community is basically replicated here, more of a double check. Just in case somebody came directly to the guide without actually following the steps in the community, they'll still be guided to make the right decisions. So prepare your starting point. Even if you missed the success community as your entry point and had the guide as your entry point, you won't be missing out on anything. You'd still be guided back to the success community. So I think that's an important distinction to make. The other important thing to note is that we tried giving you information, the same thing that I was showing you earlier, where when you're following a step, we give you the exact steps or ways on how to perform that step. So for example, if we click on this help button, which is related to deleting the extra components on your PC, it's going to tell you exactly how to do it. And all you need to do is just go follow those steps, come back here and say, yes, it's done. That's the premise of this document. We give you a step to follow. We give you the answer to complete it, yes or no, and then we give you the help that's associated or that you need to perform that step. And this is the benefit of having it in case view, and this is the benefit of us adding about, I think it was close to 50 new web articles on how to do specific things, because we want you to use this document and feel handheld and guided every step of the way. So I'm just checking my notes to make sure I haven't, before I start with understand what's changed, that I haven't missed anything that I really think is important to share with you guys. Okay, so you'll know how to create a community login and you know how to open up the guide. Excellent. Okay, we're going to move on to understanding what's changed. So remember now, at this point, you've done your planning, what firm templates you're going to create. You've created your starting point, and now you're starting to look at, okay, I'm at this point, but I really don't know what's the difference between this file and my last file. So if you had created a new file, the best thing to do is to review the release notes. So from within the guide, you can link to the release notes. If you drag the guide into an SME file, it'll link you to the SME release notes. If you had dragged the guide into IFRS file, you would be directed to the IFRS release notes. So if you're creating a new file, the most important thing is just go through this guide to understand exactly what's changed. Should you have went the other route of updating an existing file, you'd have to do a few more steps. I think what's different is from last year to this year is that we've introduced a feature called the data retention view. This is specifically for people that have updated a file. So if you created a new file, you will not see this menu option called the data retention view. It's only available to people that have updated their financial statements. It really isn't applicable to anybody that created a new file. The data retention, and the reason for that is because the data retention view, its main aim is to show you what's changed in your financials. Because you're creating a new file, there's no reference point to compare to. So we hit the menu option when it's not applicable to you when you've come from that journey. Sorry for muting myself. I think we just want to address a question that we've got through the chat. So when you update a file, you've got two options. You've got the option to replace the entire financial statements, or you've got the update option to replace specific sections. The replace the entire financial statements is very similar to you creating a new file. We don't update the individual sections in that instance. We copy the entire case view financial statements from our Caseware Africa template into your old firm template. So this enables you to retain, for example, your document manager changes, but you'll get access to all the latest disclosure that we've put in. So that's an important point just to bear in mind. So thanks for raising that question. So this data retention view, the main aim for it is to help you understand what's changed in your file. How it works is it works through a document map. So for anybody that's not familiar with the document map is this area on the left within any case view document, and it basically lets you hyperlink to different parts of the financials. How you normally used to seeing the document map is a full list of sections across our entire financial statement. So I'm going to show you what you normally would see and how the normal document map looks. So the normal document map basically has a list of all the different pages and what's within the page. So this is everything that's within the general information page. If you click on that, it lets you jump to it. We leveraged this functionality when we created the document or data retention view. We've basically given you or giving you the option to choose any one of these views. The moment you untick any one of these views, you'll come back to your normal document map. So don't be afraid that you're going to lose your document map, I think is the important part. The next thing to start understanding is what's the different views and why is it important? So we've given you the option to see all paragraphs which have changed after update. Okay, so let's just make sure we understand the scenario we're in. We haven't created a new file. We've updated a file by replacing sections. What that means is that we took your old file and we compared every single section or bit of content in that file to our libraries, and where we saw that we had a newer version in our library than was in your firm template, we updated that section and we changed that section, and we could have done that in a couple of ways. So the first thing that we could have done is we could have updated an existing section. So whenever you see this option, view all content which has been updated, what it means is there was an existing section in your file or an existing bit of content. It was outdated, we released a newer version, so we basically replaced that section. So if you click this option for view all content which has been updated, you'll see all the existing content in your file that was changed. The second thing the second view that we want to mention is that goes hand in hand with view all content which has been inserted. So inserted content is slightly different to us than updated content, insofar as inserted content is brand new sections in your file which weren't there previously. So that's the important distinction there. So when you see this option in terms of updated sections, just think of sections that have changed. And when you see this option in terms of inserted sections, just think of sections which are new. The other two views will help you go to a higher level of detail. So for example, in this view, and we'll start with this one, view all paragraphs which have changed. What we sought to do here is that often we update a section that has text within it, for example. And what happens is you don't know that, we know that we've updated the section. The section was a text section, and you identify text sections by them having the green background. And we've identified that the text in this section is actually changed to what you had in your file before update. So what we do is we give you the ability to look at what the old wording used to be. In this case, the word dividends has been added, but in the file before update, there was no word dividends. So that's an easy way of checking the text paragraphs and seeing how they are different from your last firm template to your new firm template. So that's the data retention view and how you'd see the changes text changes within paragraphs. For view all content which has been updated, so just remember, whenever you see the word or hear the word updated, just know that things which have changed, so content that was in your file and is not in your file anymore, is what would appear in this list. We've done a lot of work to make it easy for you to understand why we've changed things. So to that end, it's good to have the release notes open while you are reviewing the changes in your firm template. I'm pretty sure I opened it just now, but I'll open it again as soon as this process runs. But what we've done is we've given you the ability to find the sections that are here in the data retention view in the actual release notes. So there's at the moment, there's not an exact one-for-one relationship between the label that you'll see here and what's in the release note. And the reason for that is that a lot of the, or some of the time, we make one change across multiple sections. So say if you're fixing a bug in a table and that table was used in multiple places, then we found it a bit impractical at that point to list every section in the release notes, but there is a general section where you'd be able to see that the change that was probably effected on that section. But I want to take you through now a few examples of how you'd use it in a perfect scenario where you've got a list of sections on your left and you've got the release notes on your right. So I'm going to go back here, open up our release notes and move them to side by side. And then jump back to the financial statements. Okay, so when you're using this view, I advise you to be set up with two screens or have one screen and have the data side by side. And I kept on saying that we've put section labels in the release notes. Now, what that means is if you look at this section, country of incorporation and domicile, and it tells you info 001, is that every section, for anybody that's not familiar with how we work in design mode, is that every bit of content is within a section. And there's a grandparent-child relationship, and every section has a label. So we've taken the label, and every section has a unique label at that. So we've taken that label and put it within the document map. So if you want to see why did we change this section info _ 001, all you have to do is go to our release notes, search for info _ 001, and it'll tell you that country of incorporation and domicile updated country of establishment and domicile. So those are the types of changes that you can expect to see when you use the data retention view in conjunction with the release notes. So another example maybe is loans to from shareholders. So notes _ 010. So in this note, you might be wondering, why did we update loans to from shareholders? Then in the release notes, you can specifically see that we have excluded the impairment and subtotal from the sorting. And that's the reason that we updated the section. So we're trying to make, we're always working on this feature to make it as easy as possible. We envisage this process changing and being enhanced even further coming in the July release, where we are going to build this type of wording within the software and give you the ability to, or we might give you the ability to have capture your own firm template reasoning of why you changed it and be able to generate a report with every section label and every change that was applied to that section. We think that will help you in the following years when you're creating a new firm template. One specific scenario which came about was that a client had been updating their firm template year over year, and they basically said that we can't create a new file from scratch because we don't know what the changes that have gone into this firm template over the past 2 or 3 years. And if we give you the ability to document at a section by section basis and create a report for you to in your 2024 or 2025 year, it becomes very easy for you to ensure that your firm's specific changes are catered for because you'll have a report generated which tells you every change that happened within the file. But so that would be an improvement. If anybody wants to work with me on refining that a bit, you're more than welcome to contact me. But that's how we see this feature evolving. Yeah. So updating and seeing what's changed in your financial statements is very easy now. This is a full list of everything that has been updated. There's only one more thing that I need you to understand as firm champions with regards to this document map and how it works. So you'll notice here there's probably a list of about 15 to 20 sections on the left. This feature can be used by your clerks. And when it's being used by your clerks and they'll be using it in form mode, they don't need to see every section that has been updated. They can use this feature to review the sections which are applicable to this file. For example, or just note, when I go into design mode now, this list is actually going to increase. It's going to actually show me all the sections that were actually updated in the file. So as a firm champion, it's important that you review this list using design mode. As a clerk that's preparing financial statements, you don't need to waste time reviewing sections that are not applicable to you. For example, a lot of these sections are only applicable to body corporates. And if you, as a clerk preparing a company set of financial statements, there's no reason for you to go and review the changes that happened on a body corporate set, because it's not going to be used within this file. So that's why, from a efficiency perspective, we made it work in this way, that as a clerk, if you're using this document map and or the data retention view to review the changes, you're only going to see the changes which are applicable to this file. So anything that's hidden or off won't appear in this list. But as a firm champion, you need to review every section that has been changed. So you'd use this in design mode, because here will be a full list of every section that has been changed. The next data retention view, which is important for you to see and understand how it works, is viewing the sections which have been inserted. So remember, whenever you see the word inserted, you need to think of brand new. This is a section that wasn't there before and has been inserted for the first time in the financial statements. And that's what's going to appear in this list. Obviously, as a firm champion, you have to review every change. So we did draw a distinction between a brand new section and an updated section, because some of you want to treat them slightly differently. So in this instance, I can see that this section is a brand new section that wasn't there before, and this section is a brand new section that wasn't there before. And just like with all our data retention views, it's going to show you every single section in design mode. But if you're a clerk and you're using and just want to see the new sections that have already been inserted into your file, you're just going to see only what's on in form mode. The next thing on the data retention view is the view all content which has been protected and not updated. So for this, this is a very interesting one. What happened that you as a firm champion often take a note and customize it. You customize it for yourself, and then what you do is you put a lock on it. So an example of that would be this cost of sales note. So last year, this note, whoever made a change to it and basically clicked on the restrict updates option, then it got this lock on it. This lock means that when we run an update, won't update the section. If there's a minor change, like a cell calculation that's got incorrect spelling, we'll only change that one cell calculation, but we won't update the entire section. The problem with it is that you historically never knew that we at Caseware Africa had released an update to this cost of sale note. So all this data retention view is helping you understand is that you've got a set of content in here that's been customized, and you've got a set of content in the library that is new. So you're going to follow the same process. So if you use the data retention view, you're going to see here that cost of sales, cost of manufactured goods is where it jumped us to. So this is the section that is outdated essentially. The reason it's outdated is because you as the firm champion last year specifically said that this section must never ever change by Caseware Africa. So we didn't change it, but now you're at a point where you have to reassess whether the change from Caseware Africa needs to be applied to this note or not. So you're going to follow the same process. You're going to basically take the section label, find it in the release notes, and you're going to get to cost of sales. So over here it tells us we have updated the cost of manufactured goods section so that the lines print correctly when there's only one amount in the table. So you can, this point can make a decision whether you can test if you just have one figure in this table, does the lines print correctly? If so, that might be the reason why you locked it and didn't require us to change it. But if it's still broken, you can then decide, you can right click and do a get new version, and it'll bring the new version into here, and then it'll obviously disappear from this list. So those are the changes, the data retention view. These are the 4 options that we've given you all to help you all understand what's changed, because when we run an update, it is a very black box process. So this is now us trying to shine some light into what's changed in your file. We've also planning on making improvements to this area where we want to show you the pages which were on in your old file and are now off, or the sections which were on in your old file and are now off. We also want to show you the cells or all the cells where we've retained inputs using this data retention view. So those are 2 of the upcoming options which we envisage might be in our July release. We're still grooming and going through how we can make this better. If you all have any ideas, please feel free to just contact me or send me a mail on what you'd like to see in this list, additional to what we've already developed. It'll make your life easier. Okay, so back to the firm template guide. So you're going to read the release notes as step 1. You're going to review all the sections which have been inserted, all the paragraphs which have changed, all the sections which have been updated, and you're going to go through the restricted sections list and see if you have to get new versions of any of your old or any of our Caseware Africa notes. Then we advise you to look at the document manager. So comparing, you should compare the document manager from your old file to your new file. Sometimes during the update process, the documents end up at the bottom, for example, or they're missing a name. This step is to make you understand or help you solve those problems. So if the update did put you in that predicament, we kind of make it easy for you. We show you how to open up all the documents at once. So if you look at the wording that we've got there, it was shift all to right arrow. So I'm going to go to the document manager and I'm going to open up everything at once. A lot of people aren't aware of this option. It really helps if you're comparing your document manager manually, and then shift all left arrow collapses everything. So we brought that information to the fore. So when you're doing your document manager compare, it becomes slightly easier. The other thing that we've done is we've given you the ability to compare your mapping database. So obviously changing content within financial statements is just one area of the changes that happen during an update. A lot of Caseware, as you all know, Caseware is driven through the mapping database. So we feel that there's 2 types of comparisons that you need to do. The first mapping database comparison is to take the mapping that you've got in this file now and compare it to your old firm template. That will show you any differences between the file that you have now and what you had last year. And you'd be able to work through those differences and see if any of them or all of them carried over. And if all of them didn't carry over, then you make a decision on whether to introduce them now. The second compare that we envisage you should be doing for your mapping database is comparing the mapping database that you have now to our Caseware Africa standard mapping database, so the standard template. And the reason for that is just to make sure, especially for people that customize their mapping database, that when we obviously do our best to retain every single map number that we see fit, and just to make sure that the right retention was applied on the mapping database. So what happens is, or in order to run a mapping compare, all you do is you have to click the compare button and browse for, in this instance, I already ran it and I browsed for the file that I'm in, which is the file that's my latest firm template that I'm trying to compare, and I browsed to our standard Caseware Africa template and I clicked on this compare button. It takes about 5 minutes to run. But what it did is it puts in a date and time stamp of when the process was run, and it's telling me that this red cross indicates that there were differences, and I'm always going to expect differences, especially when I'm comparing a custom mapping database to a standard one. What you should do, however, when you see this is you need to basically click on this X. It will launch the results of the compare. So in this instance, you've got this file, map numbers whose properties have changed, which we're gonna launch. I think I might already, okay, I'm gonna launch that. But while that's launching, I think the important thing to note is that we've got help for you at every step of the journey. So when you need to compare your mapping and you're unsure about what I just said, you click on the help button and it'll tell you exactly what to do. So you're going to start by clicking the compare. It tells you what the field that you fill in. After you see that screen, you're going to get a process completed dialog. That screen is going to tell you that you've got missing map numbers and you've got mapping differences. And it'll show you the two text files. So the one text file will show you the inserted or deleted map numbers. The other text file will show you just where the properties have changed within the map numbers. So in this instance, I'm only going to show you the ones where the properties have changed. I'm literally going to copy all of this content out from this document. I'm going to go put it in Excel. It just makes it easier to review. So here's a new blank Excel book. I'm going to just say Control Paste. And the first thing that you'll notice is that there's a legend right at the top. So when you did the compare, it was a 5-minute process. You might still be uncertain what you selected as file 1, what you selected as file 2, because remember we said that file 1 was the file that we're in and file 2 is our standard template. So just make sure that when you're comparing, you're using the right information. The only thing that I'd like you all to do is to put in a filter on the header rows, and then per field, I'd like you to go through them individually and filter out the blanks. So for example, extended descriptions, I'm going to take away the blanks, and immediately what it does, it tells me for that map number, the extended description in the new file is fish farm. In the old file, it used to be farm fish. For example, in our new file, we've got full wording of value added tax. In our old file, it's called VAT. The same type of, so these are the level of detail that you can get to when you use the mapping compare. You'd be able to see every single property of the mapping database and specifically what's changed between old and new. And you'll be, if you open up the other text file, you'll be able to see all the map numbers which are added, and you'll be able to see all the map numbers which were deleted, and it's all by following the same process. So I think that's the last thing that you have to do when you update your file. And this is, I think, when I go through this process, I often am conflicted because reviewing each and every section in your financials, reviewing each and every map number, reviewing the entire document manager can become quite a long process, even though we've given you these tools. So that's why I said it's important to, from a time-saving perspective, just know if you go the file new route, you don't have to perform all these steps. We've given you obviously the latest content, and the only thing that you have to do is maybe re-customize some of your sections. And I'll show you a bit later how we made the re-customization journey earlier. I think it's important to understand that you have the option to do both, but the faster and I think the more the option that gives you the most control is actually to go through the file new route. Okay, but let's just take a step back and remember where we are. So we did all our planning, we prepared our starting point, and now we understand what's changed within this file. Now we get to the real nitty-gritty, where we can start customizing. And over here, we've made the journey very easy for you guys. We are giving you, we've taken all the disparate options that were in the financial statements and brought them all together into one place. I think everybody knew that you could change headers and footers, but for example, you can change it from a formatting perspective, and then you can change it from a settings perspective. Then you get specific settings that are only for the cover page or only for the audit committee report. And it was all over the place. So now what we've done is we've created a logical order where we're telling you at this point is a good time to import a trial balance. And the first thing that we're telling you is that you need to import your firm settings from your previous file. So a lot of people might not be familiar with this option, but what it essentially lets you do, especially if you went and created a brand new file from scratch, it will obviously not have any of your firm settings that were your settings and format that was in your old firm template. It'll have all our standard settings and format options that come from Caseware Africa. So by you going and ticking this option and browsing to your old file, when you are in a brand new file, it will automatically open up your old file and read every single formatting option that you set in for settings and format, and every single setting that you had in your old firm template, and it'll bring it and apply it to this new file. So had you went and I think in this file, in the notes section, it's customized to be capital letters for note headers. I just want to go double check that. Yeah, but in our standard template, it's normal case. So when you go and do the import of the firm settings, it'll automatically go and make that capital. So it's a very quick way of taking a brand new file that's very different to your old firm template and getting the majority of the settings applied to your file. But now that you've got a file that's very close to what you had in your last firm template, we start guiding you through the journey, and we're telling you the next important part, now that your settings and format for the most part at general level are covered, is to go and complete the info store. So in the info store, it's going to be things like firm information that's probably going to be reused, and it's easy if you capture it. It's beneficial if you capture it once and then it's always in the firm template, and so that nobody has to recapture it again. Then we say, okay, at a global level, you should be going and changing the formatting. So if you want your total lines, for example, to be bold across all your pages in all your tables, then you'd use your global formatting. So global formatting lets you make the same change across multiple pages at once. And once you've done that, we giving you access to, I think, certain things we brought to the fore that wasn't as well known. So for example, how to change the order of pages. You might want to change the order of the pages for whatever reason, and we give you the exact steps to follow. Should you need to do it. Not only will it tell you how to sort the pages, but it'll also show you how to sort the index page, because once a page moves in the financial statements, you'll want the page to move in on the index page as well. The next thing, the common component that's across all pages, is your headers and footers. So what we've tried to do here is make it as easy for you to understand what's going to change when you click this option. So if you click on the help here, it's going to show you that when you select row 1, just gonna have to close this again so that I can split my screen so it becomes easier for you guys to see. So essentially what happens is you'd be in the financial statements, you'll see row 1, row 2, row 3, and you'll be like, guys, what does this even mean? So what we've done through our help documentation and making sure that we give you access to the right information when you need it is we put in diagrams in our help documentation to show you, if you're changing row 1, you're going to be affecting that part of the header. And then you can see it's either a normal case, you can make it bigger, smaller, but it's starting to take away the black box that was inherently there. So your typical old user journey would have been, okay, let me go and make this lowercase or normal case and see what changes so that I know which row it's affecting. So we try to make that journey a bit easier. And the same can be said for all the options throughout any of the things in this page here. So this is where the bulk of the new documentation was created. And for example, here we're going to say if you untick header line, what's going to actually happen? Those two lines are actually going to fall away. So you can quickly run through your options while looking at the help documentation to exactly see when you make a change here, what it's going to actually affect on your financial statements. So we've talked about how you can get up and running with and changing these settings to be very similar to what you had in your last file by importing the firm settings, how to sort the pages, how to format your headers and footers, I think is very important. The other change, which we tried making a lot easier and easier to understand, is on the actual letterhead. So the majority of you will be customizing the cover page and the assurance report letterheads. So the cover page is quite self-explanatory. It's quite easy to do. I just want to go into a little bit more detail on the assurance reports. A lot of people didn't understand that you have the ability to either use a pre-printed letterhead or an electronic letterhead in Caseware. So you can either decide that you want to use a pre-printed letterhead, and if you do that, it lets you change a few options like to make sure that you have the right amount of space for your pre-printed letterhead. And if you're using the electronic option, then it guides you through the process on how to upload it, make sure it prints correctly and that type of thing. And the same, I think it's important to note that you can go and change you can interact with the headers and footers in the same way across all your assurance reports. They all work in exactly the same way. But it's important that ideally I prefer having an electronic letterhead, so everything's in the file. So when you ever have to print to PDF, it becomes easy. So if you can, I prefer that option, but it's a preference thing. You're more than welcome to use a pre-printed letterhead as well. Maybe some of the other key things that we brought to the fore, not from a formatting perspective, but more from a settings perspective, is the rounding. We let you configure rounding, how your annotations should work, whether your long lines print or your spacer columns print. When you're printing your file, you've got different print profiles like internal review, external draft. It lets you set up each one of those profiles to be exactly how you want it to be with the right watermark. And I think the one I want to show you quickly is setting the design mode password. So if you want to change the design mode password, it's as easy as coming to the screen, typing in your new password. So let me just actually show you. In design mode, so I'm gonna say lock this with Daisy, D-A-I-S-Y. Okay, design mode is now locked. If I try to go into design mode, and if I type in these 5 letters called Daisy, it's gonna let me go in. Excellent. But I'm gonna change that design mode password using the firm template guide. So I'm gonna now go to set design mode password, and I'm going to change it to AA, for example. When I go back here, instead of the old 5 letters, it's now a 2-letter password. Obviously, I don't encourage you to, I encourage you to change your password, but don't change it to something so easy like a 2-letter password. But we've made it very easy for you to change your password as well. We think it's just a much easier way of doing it, like how you used to do it previously. So we believe that you, at this point, after going through each and every page and assessing all the different options that we have available through form mode, that you shouldn't actually need to customize your financials any further. But should you actually need to go into design mode, we've provided, we'd recommend that you come to our consulting department to engage with them on how maybe they can help you to customize your financial statements within design mode. But what we did do for you guys is we created a new option, because we prefer that you all can do as much as possible in form mode. When you do as much as possible in form mode, there's less chance of anything going wrong, and there's a plethora of options available to you to really make these financials stand out and be unique just through enabled editing alone without going into design mode. However, should you have the need to customize further, what you used to do, so say for example, I'm in the operating expenses and I see this table and I really like it, and I want to actually, I need a table like this, because the table that Caseware Africa gave me in auditors remuneration is not really suiting my needs, or I'd prefer to have the one from operating expenses. We've given you the ability now to copy from operating expenses into any other note, just so that through form mode without going into design mode. Because remember, if you had to do this through design mode, you'd have to, there's so many things that can go wrong, and that's why we really don't encourage it at all. You'll end up in a scenario where you've got duplicate GUIDs, you've got duplicate section labels, your file can slow itself down because you'll have 2 cells which could possibly writing to the same CV database record. There's so many interconnected components. So what we've done is we've increased or given you the option of copying this. So if you need to take this to the auditor's remuneration note, you right click on it, you go properties, it'll show you the section label. You can double click over here and it'll copy that section label for you. Then you go, so now you've copied and identified what you want to copy. Now you go to where you want to paste it. So just like how you use the normal super insert, you stand on the applicable place, and while the firm template guide is in your file, you're going to have access to this new option. It's called insert copy of existing section. When you click it, it's going to ask you which section do you want to copy. You paste in the section label, and now through form mode, it goes and copies the section to the new note where you want it to be. It goes and makes all the different changes that you would normally have to do in design mode, like changing the section label, changing the GUIDs. If there were any cell references in there, it also tries to change that, so that there's the least amount of changes that you possibly need to make in design mode, should you need to. The ideal scenario is, in most cases, what we found is that you copy a section and you won't even need to go into design mode. You'll just have to just change it to how you want it to be. So in this case, I wouldn't want to call it, I might want to change the label here, and I'll just go and do that and drop that. So I think it's important for me to mention that we advise you as much as possible to stay out of design mode. That you've got so many options available to you on every page on how to customize things. We've given you a way now to copy content without going into design mode. But should you really need to go into design mode, we've given you some help documentation, but we advise that you go phone our consulting department and maybe set up some time with them on how best to customize, should you need to go into design mode. The last thing that we've done here is that should you be a firm that needs to change the mapping, we've given you instructions on exactly how to go about doing that and how you can change the document manager. This is, I think, one of the biggest improvements that we've made previously. We're moving on to now that you've customized your file, you need to make sure that you haven't broken anything. And what happened a lot in the past is that you wouldn't even know. You'd ship this out to your firm and you wouldn't even know that there were actual problems with your firm template. So this is where we've introduced automated testing. So we've created these 4 automated tests in the meantime. And the first one is for duplicate sections. So this will tell you, say somebody had went and copied a section in design mode and they never give it a new name. It will basically tell you that you've got 2 sections of the same name. And I'll show you, let me just tell you why it becomes important. This, if you've got 2 sections of the same name and you run an update on that file, it won't know which section to update. And when you've got when we write the code or the scripts that go into running the financial statements, we kind of have some base rules. So we always expect to have a unique identifier. So say if we're going to insert a new section for the first time, we'll specify, go and insert the section ABC after DEF. But if you've got 2 DEF sections in your file, it'll go to the first one that it finds. And sometimes that's the right place, sometimes that's the wrong place. So it's very important that you don't have duplicate section labels in your file. Running this test lets you quickly identify all the sections there. It goes through every section in your financial statements and sees if the same name is used twice. That's a very easy one. I think this follows the same process, or all our automated tests follow the same process. Whenever you see a button here that does something, there'll be a date and time stamp, there'll be a help documentation on specifically what it's doing and how to solve it, and then you'll get the cross of the tick. The tick means that it's passed and there's nothing to worry about. The cross means that there's a problem. So I'm going to take you through fixing 2 of these issues today. One is when you in a scenario where you find duplicate goods in your file, and one is when you have an overlapping section in your file. So the first thing that you do is you'd click on this X and it'll launch the results of all the text files. We're looking for duplicate goods found in the file. So for me, it's telling me that there's 2 cells in the file that have the same good. So, and why it becomes important and why we stress that this is always clear is because we use goods for a couple of things. We use goods for data retention, and we use goods for tagging when it comes to XBRL. So should the good not be correct, what happens is you could get the wrong XBRL tag in the wrong place, or you could get, after running an update or file new from existing with data retention, you could get the wrong figure in the wrong place. But I'm not going to expand on that for now. I'm just going to go and look at these 2 cells in design mode. So say I had this problem, I would go to my financial statements. I'd go in design mode, and I'm looking at this rows, and they're telling me both are cells. I would then come in design mode, do a Control F for cells, and I'd go and find it. And in this instance, I know that while in design mode, I made a silly customization where I copied that cell down here and I just renumbered it. So in order to fix it, what you should do is you should find the problem one. So this one is jka.z1000. The other one was jka.d4. D4 is the standard Caseware Africa one, so that's the correct one. This is the incorrect one because I copied and pasted in design mode. All I do is I go to the one that I copied and pasted, and I delete the good. All you then have to do is go back to form mode and do an enable special feature. Let me just save the file first and do an enable special feature to add a GUID back there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the GUID back, and then we're going to go rerun the test. So options, enable special feature, add GUID, and goods. And now it's going to loop through the entire financial statement. So we've got goods in sections, tables, table columns, table rows, cells. It could be a very daunting list at times in certain instances. The dev teams have actually worked on improving the results that you get from these files. We are going to socialize that with you guys in the coming weeks, I would imagine. But what we envisage is that we're going to sit in the document, we're going to suggest the way things should change. So that you don't have to go into design mode for the most part. Where we can offer a solution to fix the good, we will, and we'll suggest what we think you should do to fix it, so that it becomes a much easier process. So I think the big benefit now is that you actually know there's a problem. Now we're just gonna iteratively make it better in how we're gonna make that problem, if you do have it, easier to solve. So if you do end up in this position, we now have fixed it. You can rerun the test at any point in time once you think the problem is resolved, and you can rerun it any number of times. It'll just keep on replacing the text file that you have available. And now that I've made this one change, it should result in this test passing. Excellent. Now you've got a green tick. That means there's no problems with the goods anymore. You can move on to the next one. I think that what often happened, and especially when people have been carrying forward their firm templates and kept on updating them from year to year, you end up in a situation where you could have overlapping sections. So I just want to go into detail. When you see an overlapping section, what does it mean? So you'll get a report like this. In this instance, it's telling me that it found a problem in these two sections. So it's in notes 07301. So all I do is I go into design mode, I go in the financial statements. I could find that section label. And I kind of go and look at the hierarchy of sections. So you all know that, you all should know as firm champions, that every section has a child section, and then obviously from this section, that's its parent, and then that's its grandparent. And you never ever should be in a scenario where the parent is shorter than the child. So as it's telling me that there's a problem here, I'm scrolling down, and just like that, I am able to see that, hey, this parent is shorter than that child. So it's quite easy for me to fix. All I do is I just go enter, resize the section. So this is something that we don't envisage you having unless you went and played around in design mode. So anybody there, you that are creating new files, or anybody that hasn't played around in design mode, you don't need to worry about this. But for anybody that does get this error, I think it's important that you know how to fix it. If you don't fix it, what often happens is you roll out the firm template and people try to sort the section, and they tell you that they're getting errors when trying to sort the section. You want to eliminate as many errors as possible before you roll out your firm template, and that's why we've given you the automated test. So like with any of the tests, I first save the financials, and then I go back and I run the test. I'm just worried about time, so I'm not going to go and rerun the test, but it's going to basically give me no errors for overlapping sections at this point in time. Once you finish with fixing all your automated tests, there's a couple of things that I think we want you to test manually. So this is not a comprehensive list, but it's just a general list of things that you should be checking once you've made all your customizations. So like your index page, is it numbering correctly? So what we mean by that is, does every page have a number? Does it show up on the index page? If that page goes over 2 pages or 3 pages, does the index page say that it's from 3-4 or 3-5? you don't want these silly types of mistakes copying in once you've rolled out the template. So especially if you customize in design modes, it's important to double check these types of things. Whether group figures turn on or off, if you map something to the wrong entity. For example, if you've got a company entity type, but you've mapped something to a trustee map number, that your entity mapping is working correctly, your warning is working correctly. Then you also want to do a test in terms of checking your column alignment. So that means putting all the pages on and basically checking if doing a print preview to see if everything aligns. So I said this is not a comprehensive list. If you had problems or specific problems in your last year's firm template, it's a good idea at this point to include that as part of your testing, just so that you don't make the same mistakes in the new firm template. What's happening with probe is we haven't included the exact steps for you to follow from a probe firm template guide perspective in the firm template guide. It's still based on the community. So if you follow this link, you'll get all the steps on the community on how to improve or do your probe changes for your firm template. At some point, we'll engage and advise on when we're going to be expanding to have those steps included in this firm template guide. Then I think we're getting close to the end of our packaging journey. You should be getting excited. This is where you start cleaning up your file and getting it ready for package. You've kind of at a point now where you've tested your firm template, you've made all your customizations. So now you just need to do a bit of a cleanup. So we've got a couple of reminders in here, like have you locked design mode, or is design mode locked or unlocked, just to double check that. Is builder mode on or off? Is group figures turned on or off? Are you set to have you ensured that when you ship it, it's set to the right print profile? And have you changed your operating name? So the one thing was changing the file name. The other thing is to actually change the operating name. So we give you instructions on how to do that. Then we let you delete the trial balance programmatically. And this is quite an interesting one. It's check the script version. So I think it's important when you're a firm champion and you start the journey of packaging your firm template is that you don't install anything over it. So remember, as part of the planning, what we did was we cleaned up your entire PC, we uninstalled all the old templates, and we installed the latest Caseware Africa template only. What often happens is class or firm champions, they start the firm repackaging, and then somebody comes to them with an issue, and it involves them, for them to replicate it, involves them installing their old firm template. When that happens, what actually happened is you've actually replaced the new scripts that we've released with the old scripts. And you historically used to package the file, your new content, with your old scripts. And that's when you used to get a lot of script errors. So we introduced check to help you identify if you've got the right scripts for the right version. So what we've done is we've tied up our financial statements version number with the scripts version number. When it's the same, you'll get this message that your script versions are correct. When it's different, you'll get an error message, and then you'll have to go and reinstall the new firm template, just so you get your latest script back. And if you run this again, you should get that the script versions are correct. This is a manual step that was in the Word document. We've made it a one-click process now. So you just click the button, it'll go to and copy the packager from your old file or your old firm template to your new firm template. What happened here, we noticed, is that if you continuously updated your file, the packager houses all the components that are associated with your file. So your file works with scripts and libraries predominantly, and we often change the libraries and the scripts within a folder. So this step makes sure that everything that's required for this firm template to work is going to be packaged with the file. So it's a one-click process now. Another thing that we've done is we've given the ability to close all notes and ACPs in one go. And so just to show you what we mean by that, as you're doing your changes, you'll end up in a situation where everything ultimately will be open. So I'm looking at the notes at the moment, and I can see that I've got things open. I'm going to click this button here And in one go, it's automatically going to close every single note and ACP in the file. So you'll become much more efficient. One thing that we overlooked in this design, but we'll be releasing in the July or in an update to it, is the ability to open all notes and ACPs in one go. I think as we worked with people after the November release, it was identified as a good feature to add. So we should be adding that in the near future or at some point before the July release. But this is when you really should be starting to get excited. It's you basically been part of the process where you're cleaning up the file and you're getting close to the end and ready to package. So just like that, the script ran. A process that would have normally been mundane and frustrating and taken over 10 minutes has now just been done by a button click. We just want you to, we continue guiding you. So now once you've cleaned up your file, we're just making you do some last minute checks or last checks just to make sure that your version number is the same between the various documents. So open up the info store. Does it have the same version number as the financial statements? Does it have the same version number as the CTM, the PI score and the firm settings? I think sometimes people try to do copy components between templates. We advise against that strongly. And this is a quick way to check that somebody hasn't done that by just leveraging the version number. We feel this is the right point for you to back up your file. It's important to make a backup at this point because when you say if you need to do, once you package this and you send it to you start testing it, you might want to make a change and you don't want to go through the entire process again. So if you need to do the process again, you'll start from this backup. So it's important that you make a backup at this point. It becomes very easy to do. You can make a backup even while case view is open using the screen. It's very easy. And then we advise you to run a reapply formatting and this is the step that might take a while because every customization that you've made and setting that you saved, it ultimately goes and saves it to the local libraries when you click this button. So all your mapping changes get saved to the document library, all the financial statement changes get saved to your local libraries. And well, the reason we do that is that we understand that those libraries are different to our standard libraries. It has all your customizations. And we want, when you roll out this firm template, to get to all your users to have all your customizations. So that's our way of putting things as part of the install set. So it takes it out from the financial statements, put it in the correct places, which is also part of the install set. So when you repackage it, everybody can have the benefit of reusing it. But this step does take a while, but it does a lot of things. So it's copying all your financial statement content, making libraries out of them. It's taking your entire mapping database, putting it in the document library so it's available for you for reuse. It's updating a few JSON files. It's really doing a lot. But you are at a point now where you just need, you're done with the file, you're ready to package. And that's when you click on this help button and the process will move away from being in the financial statements again, and it'll move back to being on our success community. So we envisage at this point, all you need to do is come here, close the firm template guide, and delete it from your financial statements. You don't have to worry. If you delete it from your financial statements, all the options essentially were saved to the CV database. So if you have to re-add it, it'll save all of those options for you. So it's quite nice like that. But ultimately, you'll end up in a situation where you'll delete the firm template guide and you'll start following the steps on the success community. And these steps are very self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through them in detail. It's what you normally used to. It's just giving the file a name and clicking on repackage. And with that, you'll be at a point where you can have a Caseware work, a .cwp file or a packager file that you can send for testing before you roll it out to your entire firm. Sure. I'm very excited about this. I hope you all are too. I think it's from the feedback that we've gotten so far, we've heard clients say that it's the first time that they've ever created their firm template in the same year that we've released, for example. And we also got feedback that from everybody that used it, they really like the guided process. But so I'm hoping that all of you all are able to get the same types of benefits. If you are struggling, you're more than welcome to email support or get in contact with our support department, and they can help you with any specific issues. And if there's any feature enhancements or things that you'd like to see work differently or be added, you're more than welcome to email me. Okay, I'm just going to go on mute so I can review some of the questions that we have. Okay, so the one important question that maybe it's important that came up a couple of times that we want to just go over. The question was, if you have SME, if you have one template for SME and within it you have multiple entity types like company, CC, trust, it's important to note that when you're in design mode, you're going to see all content. But in form mode, you're only going to see the content that is applicable to the entity you're on. So if you're in company mode, you're only going to see the company content. And if you want to see the, and you need to see the trust content as a firm champion in form mode to make sure it's printing correctly, you have to switch between every entity type to make sure that the content is displaying correctly and printing correctly and as we envisaged. I think just doing that in design mode is not good enough, especially in cases where you maybe super inserted content and that type of thing. So it's important to note that while following the steps, that you must, for certain instances, change the entity type to make sure that you see all the content for all entities which are applicable to your organization. Okay. I think most of the questions have been answered in the chat. This was one of the questions which came up multiple times, so I think it was important to address it verbally. But if you still have any questions or things that are unclear, more than welcome to contact support. And yeah, with that, I want to thank you all very much for attending. It's been a pleasure taking you through the firm template guide, and I hope that you are able to use it to create your firm templates quickly this year and to a much higher degree of quality. Thank you, everybody.